Hello and welcome. This one will be slightly different than the usual. I would like to tell you about my journey, my ambitions across the past couple of years, and what I did with it across the year and a bit since I set up Wild Take Creative Design. So let's get started. It all began, let's say, a few years back when I did more and more DIY. I started to do more woodworking. And I spent hours watching YouTube, and then I thought, how hard can it be? So, let's find out how hard can it be. First of all, I would like to say that I'm really fortunate that I'm surrounded by good friends, good family, that they are supporting me. It's not only that they help me bring the pieces of slab in and out of the house, leave them from the car, and just do some manual handling and help me carry stuff around, but equally supporting me with some ideas how to cope with issues. And thank you to my partner for supporting me and being patient with me, having spending a lot of time in the shed instead of being at home with you. Across the past year, I thought that I would be focusing on woodworking. How little did I know. I had to create my web page, set up the business, engage with the accountant, and of course I had to learn how to make YouTube videos, which takes forever. So for example, on that occasion I had over 6.5 hours of footage, and it took me forever to trim, clip, to make those two parts, part 1 and part 2, how I made my first project for sale. So let's have a look. That was hard going. It's interesting, there is so much stress in a timber that the gap almost disappeared. It's just gone. Wow. I'm sure there must be a better way to cut it when you have a slab 75 mil thick, and your lovely little machine can do 65. Well, and some small surprises. That's why my Makita couldn't go through nicely, because we have some old nails. That is bloody annoying. In the middle of the slab. Time. That is an interesting part. I have a full-time job and I can just focus on woodworking after my main job, evenings, weekends, and then of course it's family, kids, and windsurfing and rock climbing and motorbike trips and other stuff. So it's always a bit of a compromise how much time I can allocate to the woodworking. I bought 2 pieces in April 23, and it's nearly a year since I started this project. So the time scales, that's something that is crazy. It just takes forever to complete it. Money is the second interesting topic, and all of it I had to support with my, let's say, own money. It's not coming from a business. So I did a very brief summary of how much I spent across the past year. So I pumped in directly into the business £4,200 to cover the cost of timber, resin, and all the consumables. But then equally I had to pay for additional premium of house insurance, advert, that is quite interesting. I thought I will go old school and I will advertise it in a local magazine. So A5 advert set me back £480, which is absolutely crazy. So the main expense was legs. I paid for 2 sets of legs for the coffee table and the dining table £640 on resin, including my cock-up that I wasted quite a few liters of resin. I spent £800. Timber, I mentioned it was £600. Rubio monocoat, that was just 100 quid. Ceramic coatings, that was 125 quid. And somehow it added up to 4,200. And I of course didn't count even fuel, time on the travel and so on. So quite a lot of money to spend across a year to support my hobby at this stage. I thought I will upgrade my router sled operation, and I bought this lovely extruded aluminum profiles to create a new frame that I will be able to flip sections just to make my life easier and the overall output quality better. So I did a few checks, what section sizes should I buy to give me all the options for how much the router can accommodate slab thickness differences. So anyway, I bought those profiles, and it takes a little bit of time to set it up, but once it's up and running, it's not that bad. It just takes a little bit of time to screw all the pieces together. But again, if you would be doing the same over and over again, I would have probably a dedicated space to have it, but currently I don't. So for every time that I need to use it, I need to assemble it and disassemble. But on that occasion I had 4 individual slabs that I wanted to flatten, and it was worth it, so I could run all of them for one thickness and then swap the settings, change the profile alignment, and then have another go with a different piece of slab. My dream at the minute is to sell both tables, the dining table and the coffee table, and money that hopefully I will make out of it, I would like to invest in the business. So the first thing that I would like to do is to have a new screed so that the concrete floor will be level and there will be no gaps underneath the wall, so that there will be no moisture coming in when it rains heavily. And in UK it does rain heavily often. So that will be the first thing that I would do. Later on, I would like to buy a couple of new tools to make the whole process more enjoyable and more fun. And the one that I would really like to improve is the dust extraction. So using the routing table creates crazy amount of dust, and it's just really unpleasant. That's why I always wear a face mask, but ideally I would like to have a setup that I can run a router and all the dust, or at least most of it, is taken away, and it's just easier and nicer to work as an environment. So this is the time that I'm preparing my main slabs for the main big table, and I had to trim them on a few occasions just to get closer to the final size that I was aiming for. So I wanted to have 2.4 meter long dining table so that it can accommodate comfortably 8 and maybe up to even 10 people dining at the same time. As you can see, the result is pretty good. It's flat, and the quality of the routing sled creates a really good starting point for the next phase, which is using the resin. Yeah, okay, let's have a quick look at the accuracy and precision of this lovely homemade jig. Okay, so after so many runs, I'm quite impressed. That's not bad. Unfortunately, there is one more pass, at least another 3-4 mil to be shaved off, but across the length, I'm quite happy. Cool. Happy days. Manual handling, that's another interesting topic. Having such a small workshop, I do struggle with space, where to keep all the pieces when I'm working on it. and each one is quite heavy. Can't remember exact weight, but it's in the region of 40 to 60 kilo for the bigger and the smaller table, and just to swing it around each time is really challenging. So the big slab is after flattening just under 60 mil thick, and it's 2.4 meter long, so it is quite chunky, quite heavy. So each time I had to flip it, move it, is just back breaking, but thanks for CrossFit it's usually manageable. But once I managed to use resin and combine two pieces together, it was crazy heavy, and then I had to call friends for help, otherwise I would be stuck. Now you can see all the dust, and it's just crazy. That's why I would like to improve on the dust extraction so that it will be easier and more enjoyable to use the shed in the future. To create a web page, that was another challenge. I realized that not only I need to find a domain, then I need to find a platform that will host it. That was fairly easy, just let's say a few quid and easy to sort out. But then I realized that most of the photographs that I have taken in the past were okay when viewed on the screen of the small phone, but then when checked on the bigger screen of a PC or a laptop, suddenly the quality wasn't always there. And then I thought, oh hell, I need to take most of the photographs again to have a more consistent setup. The biggest headache was the background, because quite often I don't have a dedicated space to take photos, and then quite often you can see odd random stuff in the background which doesn't look good. So I invested in some black backdrop so that it will be a better presentation. And it took me quite a few good evenings, weekends to set it up. I had to call a couple of friends just to ask for advice, what software to use, which platform to use. So thank you Manolis, thank you Mike for all the advice. And at the end of the day, I ended up using Google Sites, which still seems to be for free, and it's having my webpage on their platform, and all I had to pay is just for the domain. So if you would be interested to see if it was a successful creation or not, just have a look at the webpage and leave me some comments below. What do you think, what I could improve and what I can change for the future version of the web page. For this project I had to create 3 times the mold, the frame for resin and the timber. So on the first occasion I just screw it together and then use silicone from the inside, and overall it was pretty good. It didn't leak a lot, just a fraction. But then for the second and the third one I have added the silicone in between the pieces. So I used on each matching surface a silicone or coke to seal it. Then of course I had to check if the whole thing is flat and level, just to make it easier and more cost effective, less resin needed to seal it off. Then of course I used the sellotape to create a mold release so that it will not stick. And of course after the sellotape I went another stage and I have applied the wax, and I think overall it did the job. So I didn't have any issues with removing timber from the mold. So that was, I think, a good protocol, which I'm happy with. It's always good to double check if the whole thing is flat. And that is the mold release wax that I have used from Glasscast, and I would recommend it. It did the trick, so happy with it. Then I thought I will protect resin from any dust, and I created this additional like a bath with a plastic sheet just to ensure that if there will be any resin spillage, it will not leak to the floor. That was one reason. And the second one is that I could cover it up and ensure that there is no dust coming in. So on that occasion I was using again glass cast 50, which I'm quite familiar with and I like using. I'm quite happy with application of the product. It's fairly easy to mix. I usually use the trick with putting the resin and hardener into the sink to warm it up so that it is a little bit more in a liquid form. Then of course I sealed all the edges because I wanted to use black resin so that there will be no staining, and that was pretty easy and good fun to do. And hopefully by doing this I eliminated micro bubbles on the connections as well. And I thought initially this plastic cover would be a good idea, and now, oh sugar, it just stuck back to the resin, which was not a good idea. So it was a bit of a pain in the backside to unstick it, so I had to use additional supports. You can see those little droplets of resin, and it was just messy and sticky. Another issue, because I did this project for so long, is that summertime it got a little bit on the warm side, and the window of when you can use resin is quite narrow. I had a little bit of an issue with overheating, and you will see shortly that resin slightly peeled off on few occasions from the edge of the timber, but it was still in the soft stage, so it was easy fix. I just added more resin to fill the gaps and the void, and it was all good to go. I'm using jet black ink from Coral. Again, I buy it from Glasscast webpage, so it comes usually as a one delivery from Glasscast, which is quite convenient. I do like watching when you add pigment and then you stir it. It just nicely blends and it's just satisfying to watch. And then, of course, when you pour it in, it's quite nice to watch. Of course, I follow the manufacturer's guidelines, and I usually do the double pot mixing to get good result. And it's just nice to see how the resin fill up all the voids and cracks, and it's just nice to watch. I'm still using at that stage my heat gun, and later on I realized that more efficient and a better outcome I get when I use a blowtorch. It just pops the bubbles better. So now on the right hand side you can see how the bubbles just disappear, and it just creates a nice bubble free liquid which reflects nicely, and it's just satisfying to watch it. It can be frustrating when you can see little imperfections across the line, for example when you have any dust or anything else flying in the air and then it just gets stuck. That's when comes a bit of frustration. This gap that I mentioned earlier is now visible, this crack, so within a couple of hours when it was covered under the polyurethane sheet, it just heated up too much and then just cracked open. But as I mentioned, it was fairly easy to fix. I've added just another mix of resin and it was absolutely good to go. So, but it's just another lesson, don't overheat it. Summertime I had issues with too much heat, and then spring or winter or fall time there was on some occasions too cold and it just took forever resin to cure. That is the tiny little spill from the first pour, so I'm quite pleased that it was still contained within the plastic sheet, so they did the job on that occasion. And using the tape and the wax, it was quite easy to take out the timber out of the mold, and it was, let's say, an easy job. Coffee table came out really nice. I had no issues with it, and it was, let's say, a success story from, let's say, my woodworking perspective. Now it is time to kick off the build of the main dining table. So I will, let's say, save you plenty of hours and minutes of watching the same stuff, and will just summarize it quite briefly. It went a little bit quicker than the first one, just more experience, and it was just easier process, which actually I enjoyed it. And it was more summertime, so it was way nicer to work. It was July in sunny UK. Anyway, plenty of dust, plenty of mess as always. Coffee table nicely tucked in the top right corner, and waiting for the sunning in a couple of weeks, hopefully. Now it's time to prepare another mold for the big table. I have to say that I start to enjoy more and more using my tiny table saw. I know the floor is still wonky, and sometimes it just takes a bit of time just to pack it up so that the table is flat and doesn't rock. That's why I would like to have a new concrete screed so that the floor would be even better to work on. To prevent any leaks from the mold, I started to use silicone in between the pieces of frame that I'm building, and that way I don't have any problems, any leaks on that occasion. So I think that's the way forward, just to use more silicone in between and then fill up all the voids, gaps anyway from the front and back, and that way it should be leak proof. This one went really easily until I had this little disaster. So I've created a separate video on this cock up. I've mixed wrong ratio of resin to hardener, and because of this the resin never cured. It took a couple of days and it was still gooey, and I had to scrape it all off, and you can just imagine how messy it was. So if you would like to see a little bit of misery, you can watch a separate video on that topic. I'm sure you will enjoy it. This mistake set me back a few good months and a few good £100. It was just time consuming to fix it. I lost motivation on a few occasions. I got frustrated, and I didn't have much energy to carry on. And that way I managed to lose all the summer. You can just see how gooey and sticky the resin is. And the fact that it is black didn't help. It was messy and it was just so unpleasant to remove. I tried all sorts of techniques to get rid of it, and you can see the aftermath from this one. What a bloody disaster. What an idiot. I just lost so much patience and time trying to get it sorted. It was just demotivating all the way around. But looking at the positive side, in the process I managed to learn quite a few things about myself, about woodworking, about resin. The cleaning process was really annoying, demotivating, and just frustrating. But on the flip side, I know that I will not repeat the same mistake again. I will be more careful with mixing resin, and I will be paying triple attention to the correct ratio. So that is lessons learned, and it's time to move on. Anyway, so after cleaning all that mess, I ended up with a huge pile of resin and some other stuff which I had to clean up, and then I had to kick off another build of the mold for the same project. So let's see how I tidied it up. Amazing, happy days. Hello dog. Hello, hello. Let's test the other piece, which I'm more interested in. 9. And now we are in September, and in UK the temperatures managed to drop, and you can see that the resin is just not translucent and it's just not there to be used at this stage. So I warm it up for quite a long time. It takes usually even a few good hours to soak it up in hot water just to get it more liquid and easier to apply. So I covered the top surface and all the edges with a clear coat of the resin. I checked if the mold and the table and timber is flat, horizontal as much as possible, and it started to mix. And in a second you will be able to see this concentration on my face, just trying to check and ensure that I'm mixing the correct ratio. I know it sounds funny, but I wasn't laughing for the past few months, so this time I want to make sure it's all good. So now it's time to mix another few liters of resin, and hopefully this time it will go as planned. Glasscast, if you would like to sponsor me, I would be more than happy to be sponsored by you in the future. Anyway, on this occasion it all went as it should. I do like watching resin when it just flows in between the timber pieces, and thank you Hubert for helping out. It is just nice to engage kids, and they give me a hand on some occasions to help with a fun part. So that was really nice to finish the project with my son, and this is the end of part 1. In part 2 I will take all the pieces, both pieces, through the sanding process and then finishing, including fixing the legs and so on. So hopefully you will enjoy part 2 as well. A week later, when the resin hardened, it was time to take it off from the mold, and again it went quite easily. It was just nice not to have to fight with the sticky resin, and it was just quite satisfying to see how the project is coming along. So for me the biggest challenge is the manual handling. It's just getting so big, so heavy, that I struggle to lift it on my own, and it's always a headache. I need to ask someone to help me lift it or flip it around. It's just way too big, way too heavy to do it on your own, but you will see in a minute that I will, let's say, have to contemplate it quite a bit, how to do it in a safe way. So as you can see, nothing stuck to the bottom piece. That was really positive. And now the challenging part. Anyway, thank you for watching, and hopefully see you shortly when I will be releasing part 2 of this video. See you soon. Thank you.